Speech pitch by ISCA.
Hello there! Before we start today's episode, we want to share a quick note on our production. To ensure Manu's insights are fully accessible, we have utilized a text-to-speech voice for the English translation, which you will hear right after a few seconds of your original French audio. It was incredibly important to us to honor her words accurately, and we felt this format was the best way to share the story with you. Let's dive into the actual episode now.
Hi, and welcome back to Speech Pitch by ISCA. I'm Paige Tutossi.
I'm Kai Berkling, and today we're happy to have one of the legends of ISCA, Emmanuelle Foxonet, also known as Manu, who is the office manager and administrative coordinator of ISCA. Welcome to Speech Pitch, Manu, and thank you for accepting our invite.
Merci pour votre invitation.
Thank you for inviting me.
So let's start off with some general questions about your role. So what does a typical day look like for you as an office manager and coordinator of ISCA?
Alors, c'est un peu compliqué.
That is a bit complicated to answer because I don't have any specific role. Actually, they call me the Swiss Army knife because I do tons of different things. And I don't really have a typical day since I work from home, which is sometimes funny because I may have meetings early in the morning, but I work with people in a lot of different countries, so as far as time zones go, it is a bit complicated. For example, sometimes I wake up and have a Zoom meeting, so I have to quickly throw on a blouse. You only see my top, donc voilà. My days are divided up into a lot of different activities, but I don't have any typical day. Every day I do several different tasks because I work with 15 members of the ISCA office in different countries.
Membres du bureau ISCA différents dans différents pays.
So 2 questions. What is the most challenging part of your work? And what is the most rewarding part of your work?
Alors, challenging, ça a été...
Well, for challenging, it is being adaptable. For all these years, since it has been 20 years that I have been working for ISCA, it has been learning to be adaptable because every 2 years the president changes and so my boss changes. Then every 4 or 8 years I change my office. So I change who I am, my personality, the country I am in. And every year we change the continent for the conferences. I have to adapt to a new way of work, a new country, new people, and a new work environment. So that's the heart of my work. It's to adapt to any situation, and it's not always easy.
De s'adapter à toutes les situations. Et c'est pas toujours facile.
Wow, so flexible.
So how has the role of an office manager evolved? Because you said you've been there for 29 years. Hasn't there been much change in your role in that time?
Disons que le travail que j'effectuais au tout début...
When I started 30-some years ago, it was sort of the beginning of work from home. That is to say, now I feel like everyone knows about work from home, but for me, I have been doing it for 30 years. But for me, working from home was natural. It is true that at the beginning it was a bit strange, or rather very, very surprising for the people around me that I could be talking to someone in China in my kitchen at breakfast, or that I could have a meeting with someone in Australia in my garden in the afternoon. Even for me, it was a bit surprising. But for the people around me, it was completely shocking. I would tell people about what I do, and people would look at me funny. Especially because I live in a small village in the south of France. People looked at me like I was speaking gibberish. But little by little it started to change, and we could connect with each other in all kinds of new ways. I feel like distances are shrinking. But 20 years ago, when I would tell people that I was going to San Francisco, they would really look at me like I was an alien. Today, everything feels closer. We have a lot more in common. But now everything has changed, especially the technical aspects. So really nothing is the same. I remember at the beginning I used to work with a modem and nothing was high speed. If I got an email with 2 photos, it would take the whole afternoon to download them. That was the norm with my modem, and I could hear the sound of the modem all night. It would make noise all night long when I was sleeping because my emails would be coming through, or faxes were coming in, or people were registering for Interspeech all night. So there was a lot of physical paper, and all the modems were super slow. But at the same time, it was good, it was an adventure.
Tout était lent, mais c'était bien aussi, c'était une autre aventure.
That's amazing. So what is like the project or the task that you do that has the biggest impact on the entire organization?
Alors, il y a quelques années, je trouvais que je tournais en rond un petit peu.
A few years ago, I was spinning my wheels a bit at work because all of the tools were not longer working well, as the ISCA office was becoming a large international group. At the beginning, it was a small European group that then became a large international group. So at the ISCA office, a lot of people were becoming more invested and active in their roles. This made me want to redefine my role a bit, and I asked them to do country outreach, which was something really interesting to me. I went to a bunch of countries to try to meet people in speech research and to see if they wanted to host Interspeech. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work because things happened, like some political events. I would meet with people to try to organize something. We did the same thing in Jerusalem, but unfortunately things happened and we could not host the conference there. But because of this, I won't say because of me, but because of this desire to open up to the world, Interspeech has started to move around a bit, not always being hosted in the same place. And it is going to continue this way, without people being worried about going to new continents.
Que les gens aient peur de découvrir d'autres endroits ou d'autres continents.
That's really great. It's definitely great for us researchers to go in new places that we haven't seen before, and meeting, especially if your university has connections with certain universities, then you always work with those people, and it's hard to kind of break outside and meet new people. And if you're in a place where Interspeech isn't coming a lot, you don't have a lot of funding to go to it, you may never run into these people. So if we're going to them, then we can finally meet these people and make more connections. We're going to have a much more global, especially with speech, with languages, we need to be connecting with everyone. So it's really great to know that you were helping instigate that. So moving on to the next question. Can you share some of the administrative and logistical challenges that come with managing an international level association like ISCA?
Comment dire? Il y a de moins en moins de questions administratives.
There are fewer and fewer administrative tasks because there is no more paper. Everything is done online, everything is done directly and very quickly. Work that I was doing a few years ago doesn't exist anymore. I remember, for example, for my first few conferences, I was selling the proceedings and papers. So I showed up with big suitcase full of huge proceedings booklets. People had to come to the stand and buy them. I had a big card imprinter and people gave me their bank card and I would manually process it so they could buy their booklets. But all of this is over now. Everything is online. Administrative tasks like that are gone. Now communication is what is important, being able to communicate with other people and delegate work to local teams and to trust them. Often local conference organizers do amazing work. Then we have to trust the chairman who we trust to handle the conference. And in general, this all goes well.
Au chairman à qui on a confié la conférence. Et puis en général, ça se passe bien.
So if you think back about how it used to be, I mean, I remember those big proceeding because we used to have to take them home, right? You come with an empty suitcase so you can put your half-meter high stack of proceedings into it. So what about looking into the future? So that has changed, but what is like your dream tool set to work with in the future? Like if you could just imagine now, what would be like the most important improvement to your work so you could be more efficient or enjoy it more or be more effective?
Au niveau des outils, je ne sais pas, je n'ai pas de vision très claire de.
As far as tools go, I am not sure. I don't have a very clear vision of what could be in the future. I think that ISCA and Interspeech are growing very quickly. When I started working for ISCA, it was called ISCA, since it was a small European association that was started in France. It only had between 100 and 200 members, and today there are between 2,000 and 2,500. It was only European, and today it is international and is active in about 60 countries. It all goes very fast because 25 years ago feels like yesterday. I think about whether ISCA and Interspeech could continue and if the association will become a real company with a lot of employees, since for the past 20 years I have been the only employee. Today we hired another person part-time, and it may eventually become full-time. But I wonder if this is really enough because there are more and more activities, and with 2 people working permanently and 15 volunteers, I am not sure if this will be enough for the coming years.
Que ce soit suffisant dans les années à venir. Mais nous verrons, je pense qu'on va s'adapter.
So you mentioned how much it's grown and you gave us a number, and down here we have written down our number of around 2,400 members and still growing. And during the general meeting, we saw this, projected growing the last years. So how do you manage this and help support such a diverse and global community?
Alors, jusqu'à il y a 2 ans en arrière...
So up until 2 years ago, it started to become very complicated because I was alone and because a lot was DIY. We didn't have the tools we needed yet to work properly, and we spent a few years trying to become more professional, and finally we managed to do it. We put aside some of the budget, and our goal with this was to become more professional and get more tools to help manage everything. Now we have the database called Wild Apricot, for example, that manages all kinds of things, so I can put more time into other, more valuable tasks instead of things that can just be done automatically nowadays. For the moment, it is all working well.
Automatiquement aujourd'hui. Donc pour l'instant, ça fonctionne bien.
Okay, so moving on from that question to the next one. We come to Interspeech, everything is perfect. Everybody knows where to go, the speakers are there, everybody's happy. But something tells me there's a whole lot of work in the back office that makes it look smooth to us. What's going on before we enter the door on the first day? What do you do to make it look so good and perfect?
Alors déjà, c'est quelque chose qui se prépare très...
So already this is something you prepare for way in advance, at least 3 years, sometimes more. Then, for a successful interspeech, it is a bit of an art form to hide what went wrong. So sometimes there are things that didn't work out, but we try not to let this slip. It is a lot of work that amounts to several years. It is also because of this that it becomes more and more perfect. Several processes have been put in place for people to follow, a veritable stack of rules and contracts. Processes to make sure everything is done correctly. This has its advantages and disadvantages, in that many conferences have the same profile. It can mean that we lose a bit of the flavor of the host country because people want to make the conference comfortable for everyone attending and all nationalities. But there are differences between nationalities. Someone from Europe can be happy with a banquet because there was a party and there was loud music and dancing, but maybe someone from Asia or India finds it disastrous that everyone was standing to eat. There are all different styles. And in fact, we have to try to find a compromise to meet everyone in the middle, and it is not always easy. I remember one time when we were hosting the conference in Japan. We were discussing with the organizing committee, telling them that there is not enough space, but it is not a big deal, we can just stand and it will be okay. We will all be together, have some drinks, it will be great. And they said, no, it is not possible, everyone has to have their place. You can really have social protocols like this in certain countries, and in others not at all. And for situations like this, you have to negotiate a bit to see what is possible without worrying everyone, and so that everyone is happy. It is a bit challenging, but I think that we managed to not have too many complaints after the conferences, so the results are not too bad.
Trop de plaintes après la conférence, donc ça doit être pas trop mal le résultat.
I mean, I think you've been doing a great job because I've only been to a couple Interspeech, but so far we don't see any of that, so it's been great. But moving on to some more specific questions about Interspeech. ISCA has been hosting Interspeech in a lot of different locations, and you've talked about how you were helping with these different locations. Do you have any favorite location that it's been so far, and why?
Alors, j'en ai plusieurs. Mon premier Interspeech était à...
I have several. My first Interspeech was in Rhodes in Greece. It was the first time that I went to a conference like that. I found it marvelous. Also, Greece was beautiful with the sea and the pools all around, so I think about it with a lot of emotions because I found it wonderful. I really find myself lucky to have gone there. Then the most beautiful interspeech, maybe because I love the country since it was in the south and I am a southern girl, was in Lisbon in Portugal. I adored that conference because it was so Portuguese. I really like a conference where you can get a feel for the flavor, as we say in French, that the country shows us, showing off a bit of their culture, their music, their food. I found that they did this very well in Portugal. I found it was really well done in Portugal, and it is a great memory for me. Then in my top 3 is of course France, since it is my home country. I really liked the conference in Lyon. It was a really big team in the whole country, from the north to the south. They really gave it their all to have something special. I really liked it, but I may be a bit biased. But overall, I find that every team puts in a lot of effort, and it is a great conference in every country. I think it always seems like everyone enjoys themselves.
Pour que ce soit sympa dans tous les pays, je pense que les gens sont assez contents quand même.
So now that we know what it looks like on the outside, will you share with us some funny behind-the-scenes stories, perhaps?
Alors j'en ai beaucoup, je suis pas sûre que je puisse tout raconter.
Well, I have a lot. I am not sure I can tell them all. I may have to keep some things secret. No, but what was funny was when I started working for ISCA. At that time, I was really young. I was a student. I didn't know anything about the domain and I had to keep up appearances and adapt, pretending that I was on top of everything. So at the beginning I found everyone really impressive, but I have to say I was warmly welcomed. I remember all these men, there was a lot of men at that time in the committee, all these men of a certain age, and I found that they were all a bit old, even though they are basically the age I am now. But actually I was a bit of a baby at that time and they were very famous professors, and in fact they treated me like their equal right away. I remember Roger Moore, who got up to get me a coffee, or Sadoki Fori, who made sure I was okay, who would lend me his chair or drop me off at the hotel, so nothing bad would happen to me. And I find that all a bit crazy because I always thought I was a bit insignificant because I was young, because I was inexperienced, because I had a job that was not well defined at the beginning. But actually they were just all so great with me, and I said to myself, wow, this will be like a second family. And this is why I really took a liking to this job that at the beginning was not supposed to be a forever job. Since in the beginning I was only a student and so I was only supposed to be there a couple months. I was just replacing someone on maternity leave, and so I assumed I surely didn't have the same competency as the person I was replacing. She went to grad school, she spoke 6 languages. Sometimes I asked myself what I was doing there. I will never make it, this is not my place. But all these people were making me feel at home. They made me want to keep going, to integrate myself and to always do more. And now today I am a part of this family and I tell myself, Emmanuelle, you did well. You did well to stick it out and keep going because it is clear that you have your place here. So it is awesome. After that, yes, I have some anecdotes, like at the beginning I had a hard time understanding some things since I didn't come from research. Things were not always obvious, and with my level of English it was a bit difficult. I remember, for example, in some meetings there were times when I didn't understand certain things. Once in a meeting someone was talking about IEEE. I didn't understand and I thought, wow, they want to send me to Tripoli, and I was worried. So some things like that I didn't understand well, and voila, little by little I did it. Then once I learned all the vocabulary I could understand, but it was not easy at the beginning. Sometimes were more complicated than others, but everyone always had a good sense of humor about it. Everyone was super nice to me, so I said to myself, this is my place, I will stay here. And now it has been for 29 years.
Voilà, que je me suis dit, c'est ma place et je resterai là. Et ça fait maintenant 29 ans.
And we're very happy that you managed to stay around. It's great. And that you found a little family here and you help grow the family every year. So you talked a little bit about Japan before, but talking about other conferences that have been in countries that are far away or different from where you're from, such as in Incheon or in Graz, what have been some of the biggest logistical hurdles in organizing these types of conferences that you're in unfamiliar culture and country?
Alors, j'ai pas d'exemple particulier pour Graz ou pour Incheon. Je me rappelle pas que.
So I don't
qu'il y ait
have
eu
any
des
specific
problèmes.
examples for Graz or Incheon. I don't remember having any problems. I know sometimes in India, for example, you have to trust people. Sometimes we really think, wow, this will be complicated, and we hope and we cross our fingers that everything goes well. I remember when we saying we would go to India a few years ago, everyone was like, yes, but India could be dangerous. We could have sanitary issues. It will be complicated if people get sick from drinking the tap water, etc. And in the end, there were always some people who were reluctant. They wanted to change locations, and we really had to reassure them saying, no, you have to trust that it will be okay. In the end, it went well. I also have an anecdote for India. I remember that the day before the conference, we went to visit the conference center to see if everything was ready. This was right after an ISCA meeting, so we went into the conference center thinking we would do a last-minute visit to make sure everything was ready, and it turned out nothing was ready. They were hosting a wedding, so everything was set up for a big Indian wedding, and in classic Indian wedding style, it would end at 5 a.m., and we were supposed to start the conference at 8 a.m. But when we showed up at 8 a.m., everything was perfect, exactly as it should be. We didn't sleep well because we thought it would be a catastrophe, but no, we trusted it would work out, and it all worked out perfectly. There are a lot of places like that, so I know you just have to believe and trust the people from the country, even if they do things differently. We let them lead and they do it well.
Différence avec ce que nous on a l'habitude de faire. On leur laisse le lead et ils font bien.
So next year, we're going to be going to Australia. Have you ever been there before for a conference?
Alors, j'ai pas eu la chance d'aller en Australie. C'est un pays que
So
j'ai
I
jamais vu.
have never been able to go to Australia. The last two conferences that were there, one in Sydney and one in Brisbane, I had to miss out, but for very good reasons. In 1998, I had a baby, and in 2008, I also had a baby. But I think that I can assure you that next year, I won't be having a baby.
Donc, j'attends beaucoup de l'année prochaine et je vous assure que cette fois-ci, je n'aurai pas d'enfant.
Okay, that's the only reason to forgive you not to go to Sydney, of course. So, from what you've been telling me, I have the perception that you have a very unique role, and with like you can do everything and all this international, intercultural communication. So your job is very unique.
Alors, j'ai cru ça pendant longtemps.
Actually, I thought that for a long time, but in the last couple years, I have been invited to what we call farm trips, familiarization trips. They are tourism offices in certain cities out countries that invite me to visit their country to promote their activities. And so when I go on these types of farm trips, I realize that there are actually a lot of women doing the same thing I do. So it is not at all unique. It is actually a pretty well-known job in other research domains outside of speech, like in medical research, for example.
Parole et surtout dans le milieu médical, par exemple.
Oh, that's super interesting. I had no idea. So this is kind of the end of our structured interrogation. So for a question that's a little fun, so when you started in this role, is there anything that's happened to you that you never would have imagined happened when you were first starting?
Alors, quand j'ai commencé, en fait,
When I started, the speech researcher's style was not at all like the people I work with today. Now they are young and they will come to meetings in jeans and a t-shirt. 30 years ago, a lot of the people came in a suit, with ties, very, very well dressed, very serious. But for some parties, at the end of the evening, some people were much more cool. They would take off their suit and tie, and one time I ended up dancing to rock with a really well-known president at the time and with other people in the ISCA office. These types of parties made me realize that these people were a bit less serious than I had thought. And so this was really cool, and they are really good memories.
Prévu. Et ça, c'était très, très cool. C'est vraiment des bons souvenirs.
Okay, so I think that wraps up our podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us all those secret insights, and also the vast experience and the complexity of the work that you do, which now everybody will know because you'll be famous. So thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, and Thank you for co-hosting with me, Kay. And we feel like we're in some sort of secret society with some inside information now and sharing with the community to know, also to understand all of the difficult things and all the challenges that go into what we see now just on our side.
Merci à vous de m'avoir invité. Je passe un
Thank
très
you
bon
for
moment.
inviting me. I had a great time, and in a few years, I will have to come back and see you and catch you up on how things have been going.
Je reviendrai vous voir pour vous expliquer ce qui s'est passé depuis.
Thanks a lot for listening, and stay tuned for future episodes of Speech Pitch as we might be interviewing your favorite researcher. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to your podcast, and also follow the ISCA SAC on X and LinkedIn, where we share all our latest news with you.
Speech pitch by ISCA SAC.